So last winter, I did a video on how steam locomotives used to frequently travel along frozen rivers and lakes in winter. While this technique was widely used, it still required the laying of temporary rails, which was fine for frequent passenger use, but what if you wanted to transport a lot of goods over a frozen river only a few times, or in an area where there may be no railways? The answer, as it turned out, was to put a steam locomotive on skis. The Ice Locomotive, built in 1861, was designed and built by Nielsen & Co. for use in icy conditions. Their design mostly took influence from saddle tank locomotives, with the water tank set on top of the boiler. The cab was set at the back by the firebox for the driver and fireman, and it was also fitted with buffers as well. Here, the similarities with conventional steam locomotives ends. It was fitted with a set of skis at the front, as well as a steering wheel and a pair of large driving wheels at the back. They were intended for work in Russia, where at the time railways were only built between major cities. These engines could traverse land and frozen lakes and rivers provided the ice was thick enough. They'd have several sleds tied behind them, usually loaded with goods and supplies, forming makeshift trains. The most well-known of these engines was named Rurik, which ran along the frozen river between St. Petersburg and the naval base at Kronstadt. Most of these engines were modified when they arrived at their intended places of work, usually having a cab fitted for the driver and fireman to protect them from the cold and adverse weather. Nielsen & Co. built several of these engines, however it's believed that they only ran successfully for one winter season, and after that, nobody is quite sure what happened to them. It's likely they were either eventually modified into railway locomotives, disassembled for parts, or simply melted down for scrap. These engines, however, weren't the only ice locomotives ever built. In 1860, the New York Times featured an article regarding a locomotive designed by a Mr. Norman Weird to traverse frozen rivers. The machine is described as the size of an ordinary passenger car, shaped like a boat with airtight compartments to keep it afloat should it break through the ice, and had the ability to raise its body several feet above the ground to aid in traversing deep snow. It is also described as possessing the ability to pull itself out of the water, and its main driving wheel could be heated by steam from the boiler to help reduce the buildup of ice. I wasn't able to find many pictures of the vehicle, and I'm not 100% sure if the ones I'm showing currently are of it specifically, but it's the best I could do. Another, very short article was published years later in the New York Times in 1892, this time about another supposed ice locomotive built by a boiler inspector named Mutney. It was described as 6 feet long with an OAB, however you pronounce that attachment, and that the highest part was about 3 feet from the floor. I couldn't find much else about it, not even a picture, so whether or not the machine worked is a mystery. Overall, ice locomotives are an interesting footnote in the history of steam power. While they didn't become a widespread technology like traction engines or other similar machines, they're still nonetheless a quirky little design that, I think you'll agree, holds a special charm of its own. Subscribe for more.